What do people like most about living on the Oregon coast? What are some of the downsides? There might be some things that you might not like about living on the Oregon coast, and there might be some pleasant surprises. There might be some things that you find as a pro of living on the Oregon coast, but somebody else might find that as a con. And we're actually going to save that for a third category in our pros and cons video. And you can even comment below and let us know at the end of this video if it's a pro or a con to you. In this video, I'm going to show you the good, the bad, the ugly on the Oregon coast. I'm going to show you why so many people move to the Oregon coast, and maybe some things that you might want to consider or you might want to watch out if you're thinking about moving somewhere along the Oregon coast. All that starts now. Hey everyone, Seth Marchant with the Home Team Brokers here. If you're new to this channel, living on the Oregon coast, we show you what it's like to work, live, eat, sleep, play, and in this case, all the pros and cons of living on the Oregon coast. So hit the subscribe button, tap the bell, make sure you get notified each time we drop a new video. Give us a thumbs up if you like the video as well, that helps us. We get people reaching out to us all the time that want to move along the Oregon coast. And we love to hear from you, so give us a call, send us a text, shoot us an email. You can even click the link below in the description to schedule a Zoom with us. Okay, so as I mentioned, we've got pros and cons. We'll start with the cons first, save the pros, the good stuff for last, and then I do kind of have a small third category that's undecided, and you can let us know in the comments if you think that's a pro or a con. All right, so first thing. All right, so our first con. Gardening. Gardening can be a little bit tricky along the Oregon coast. The weather makes it difficult. It can get really windy along the Oregon coast. So you'll have to find a place on your property that's either sheltered from the wind or build something that will at least shelter it somewhat from the wind, fence or something like that. The wildlife also can make gardening challenging. Deer and elk, lots of things that you're going to find wildlife pretty much anywhere up and down the Oregon coast, no matter how rural or how close to the city, the bigger cities you are. So the wildlife eating your garden sometimes too can also make it challenging. You'll probably want to have a raised bed rather than just planting directly into the ground. You're going to run into a lot of sand, so having a raised bed with something where you can control that, like compost, and have a thicker level of soil rather than just planting directly into the sand is probably something you're going to want to do as well. Now gardening it's not a big one. I'm sure it's not a deal breaker for anybody, but if you are a big gardener, that is something that you'll want to keep in mind when you're moving to the Oregon coast. All right, next is housing. Now, housing could probably be a con for most places in the country, including most places in the state of Oregon right now. We have a shortage right now, so what that means is there's more people that want to buy a house than are selling a house, which makes it very difficult for home buyers. That's no different on really anywhere throughout the Oregon coast. Just like every real estate market, there's going to be pockets that are a little bit warmer than others, but for the most part, finding a house can be a little bit difficult along the Oregon coast. Of course, if you already own a home, you could put this in your pros category. You've probably seen the value of your home go up quite a bit recently. And if you even recently bought a home, just month over month, you've probably seen the value of your home go up quite a bit. So if you are a homeowner, or if you're lucky enough to have bought a home the last few years, definitely that could be in the pros category, but it's in the cons category for a lot of people because it is so hard to buy a home right now. And that's part of what we're here for. Definitely, if you want to talk about buying or selling a home, reach out to myself, Seth at the Home Team Brokers. Next, we have income and employment. Median household income on the Oregon coast is going to range from about $45,000 to about $50,000. I think Clatsop County, which is the northernmost county, that's where Astoria is, topped out at $55,000. The lowest being in Coos County, that's closer to southern Oregon, at $45,000. The average for the state of Oregon is $76,000. The national average is $67,000. So your income is a little bit lower on the Oregon coast, and unemployment is a little bit higher. It's a little bit higher relative to the state of Oregon, and it's a little bit higher relative to the national average. Next, we have income and unemployment. The median income ranges on the Oregon coast from topping out at the highest in Clatsop County of about $55,000 a year to the lowest, which was in Coos County, at about $45,000 a year. Now, the statewide average is $76,000 in Oregon. The national average is $67,000. So your median income is lower along the Oregon coast, and the unemployment is also a little bit higher than the statewide average. So unemployment rate is going to range at the highest currently that I found in Lincoln County. It's in the high sixes. It was at 6.9%. And then other than that, most of the counties are going to range somewhere in the 5s. So you're ranging 5 to maybe high 6% anywhere along the Oregon coast, which again is a little bit higher than the statewide average, a little bit higher than the national average. None of Oregon's largest employers reside anywhere along the Oregon coast, or at least the top 100 employers. I think the largest employer on the Oregon coast is going to be in Coos Bay, and that's the Bay Area Hospital, and they employ about 1,000 people. If you are in the healthcare field, there are quite a few hospitals, great hospitals up and down the Oregon coast. According to Indeed.com, just about all of them are hiring right now. But if you are moving to the Oregon coast, you'll definitely want to consider your employment. Make sure you can work where you want to work, and your income. Make sure you can earn the wage that you want to earn. Next, sort of tying in with income and employment, is cost of living. Cost of living on the Oregon coast is higher than the national average. The cost of living in the state of Oregon is higher than the national average. The Portland metro area is probably mostly driving that up. What you'll find along the Oregon coast is the housing is going to be cheaper in most places. You might find a few places like maybe in Astoria where your housing is kind of in line with Portland, but for the most part, housing is going to be anywhere from 25, 35, 40% less expensive if you're coming from somewhere like Portland. Compared nationally though, if you're coming somewhere from like the Midwest, the housing is definitely going to be more expensive. So your cost of living, especially your housing, is going to be more expensive along the Oregon coast. Other cost of living things such as utilities or healthcare along the Oregon coast are going to be right in line with what you would find throughout most of Oregon. So if you're coming from somewhere else in Oregon, you won't find that the cost of living is a little bit higher. You won't find that the cost of living is higher, but if you're coming from out of the state, especially where cost of living and housing is lower, you will find pretty much anywhere along the Oregon coast is going to be higher than where you're coming from. All right, now if the high cost of living, high unemployment, and low income aren't enough, we also have natural disasters. Okay, so what kind of natural disasters do we have here? Well, here in the Pacific Northwest, we are part of something known as the Ring of Fire, which is essentially a whole series of volcanoes that stretch. They call it a ring. If you look at it on a map, you just Google search it, you'll see that it looks like a ring that's all throughout the Pacific. That includes the Pacific Islands. And so, well, volcanoes, well, the closest ones, Mount Hood, Mount St. Helens, which erupted 40 years ago. And when it erupted, that ash actually reached all the way to Wisconsin, which the Oregon coast is much closer to Mount St. Helens than Wisconsin, of course. However, the wind does blow from west to east, so the chances of actually being affected by a volcano, if you're on the Oregon coast, given the wind, are probably next to nothing. So what we do have to watch out for, though, is earthquakes. There is something that people have been referring to as the big one that is supposed to be coming. And they call it the big one because they predict that a very, very large earthquake is going to hit somewhere along the Pacific Northwest. And they say that we're overdue for that. There's something called the Cascadia Subduction Zone. It's a fault line that runs all up and down the Pacific from California to British Columbia, Canada. And I guess, I'm not an expert on this, but what they do is geologists can dig down into the earth and they can see about 10,000 years back, and they can see how often a large or an earthquake happened and how often there was a tsunami as a result of that. The last time one of those happened was about 1700. And I guess they're supposed to happen about every couple hundred years, so should have happened again around 1900, so I guess that's why they say we're overdue. And so not only do we have to worry about an earthquake, but also being on the coast, we have to worry about a tsunami. Now, if you've never seen a tsunami before, I would say to check out, in 2011, there was an earthquake that off the coast of Japan that created a tsunami, and there's some pretty incredible videos that show you actually what it looks like with the tsunami coming in and then hitting their coastline and then just going in along the coast, and you can kind of see how much damage the ocean can do once it comes inland. And so that's kind of what they're predicting for the Oregon coast, the California coast, Washington coast, British Columbia, Canada. Might happen tomorrow, might not happen in our lifetime, who knows. But if it does happen, it definitely is something to keep in mind and maybe be prepared for. So earthquake, be prepared for an earthquake, have some extra, whatever essentials you need, lights, batteries, food, water, stuff like that. Tsunami, now when you're driving up and down the Oregon coast, you will sometimes periodically see tsunami evacuation routes. So like this is a real thing. There are places that they instruct you to go in the event of a tsunami. Now if you go check out those videos, like I mentioned online, of the tsunami that happened in Japan 10 years ago in 2011, the one thing that you'll notice is that tsunami comes in really fast. I think these things can actually travel hundreds of miles an hour. If you can even imagine, a wave on the ocean going hundreds of miles an hour. So they come pretty fast after the earthquake, so you don't have much time to react. So you definitely want to be aware of the evacuation route or maybe at least a high ground, wherever that is for you. We have actually life jackets at the house, even though we don't have a boat. We just keep life jackets. Again, if you watch some of those videos of tsunamis, it would definitely be nice to have a life jacket in hand when the ocean comes inland and sweeps you up, no matter how strong of a swimmer you are. So we do have natural disasters. Haven't happened on the coast in my lifetime, but again, the experts say that we're overdue, so that is something that at the very least you should keep in mind, at least be a little bit prepared for an earthquake or a potential tsunami. All right, now, and if all of that wasn't enough, the next thing on our list is high crime. All right, so Oregon ranks nationally 35th for crime reported. It is slightly higher along the Oregon coast. So both nationally and in some cases locally, your crime rates are going to be slightly higher. If you dig into it though, it's mostly petty crime, mostly property crime. We actually discussed that quite a bit in our worst neighborhoods video. You can check that out here, worst neighborhoods along the Oregon coast. And so it's not violent crime like murder or rape, things like that. In fact, Oregon and the Oregon coast do rank lower nationally, pretty low actually for things like violent crime. So your crime rate is higher. If you look at the numbers, it might look kind of bad. When you're actually there, on the ground, it's not something that you really see. So crime might get put up there on the cons list, but it's probably not as bad as it might seem on paper. All right, and then last but not least, how about some taxes? Oregon does have one of the highest income state taxes in the country, falling in at 9.9%. Some people have left the state because of that. Some states don't have income tax, so definitely a big con to have that higher income tax. But here's our first pro: we don't have state sales tax. So if you buy a loaf of bread, it's $3.99. You pay $3.99 at the register. I personally like that. Whenever I travel outside of the state, it's always annoying to pay sales tax. So for all you people coming from outside of the state, you might be used to it, but it is really nice to pay the price that you see at the register. In fact, a lot of people on the border of the Oregon-Washington border will come down from Washington to shop in Oregon so that they don't have to pay that sales tax. So obviously it irritates some other people as well. It is really nice not to have to pay sales tax. It used to be that you could go to another state, and if you were an Oregonian, you could show your driver's license and you wouldn't have to pay their sales tax there. I don't know if that's still a thing. I haven't seen that in a long time. I've never seen somebody in the last 20 years outside of the state of Oregon asking not to pay the sales tax because they're in a state that doesn't pay one. So I don't know if that's a thing. If anybody out there actually even knows, maybe you could comment below and let us know if that's still a thing. If you're an Oregonian, if you can go travel somewhere else and not pay a sales tax. It is nice not to have to pay a sales tax. So that's gonna kick us off with our pros. And next on our list is beauty and recreation. As you probably know, it is beautiful here. Might be biased, saying that, living here my whole life, but it's really green here. It's literally green here. If you've been other places, let's take California, let's take Southern California. When you're driving around Southern California, let's be honest, it's pretty brown. You don't see a whole lot of green. Now your weather is better, I'll give you that, but the difference between a Southern California and the brown and coming to Oregon and you just see green everywhere, it's beautiful here. So everybody appreciates the green, the lushness, and then consequently what that means is we have a lot of people that appreciate that beauty by going out and taking advantage of it. We have a lot of trails, a lot of state parks. There's tons of outdoor recreation. There's tons of places for recreational vehicles if you're into that kind of stuff. Lots of camping. So there's a lot of different ways that you can take advantage of the beauty here. And again, I know I might be biased with that, but I just think about some of my own personal anecdotes. And if you're somebody that, maybe you can speak to this, if you're not an Oregonian or if you've ever traveled outside of the state, I've noticed going to other states, if you go to like an art gallery or some place that sells like photos or prints or something like that, or even the gift shop in an airport, just pick a random gift shop in a random state, let's say just like a Denver, Colorado. I noticed that oftentimes there will be pictures of places all around the world, and almost always there will be at least one from somewhere along the Oregon coast. I was in Tahiti one time, one of the most beautiful places in the world, and there was a little shop, and I noticed walking by this shop there was a picture, and that picture looked familiar, and sure enough I took a closer look and it was from Samuel L. Boardman, which is on the southern Oregon coast. It's a state park, one of the most beautiful places on the Oregon coast. If you're ever in that area, definitely have to check out Samuel Boardman Park. So anyways, just traveling around outside of the state, I've noticed that other people, not only in our country, but around the world, also notice the Oregon coast as well. So that's just another testament to the Oregon coast beauty. All right, this next one ties right along in with the outdoors and recreation, but I'm gonna separate it just because it's so big, and that is hunting and fishing. Hunting and fishing is huge in the state of Oregon, and it's especially big on the coast. And the reason why on the coast is because you kind of have an advantage along the coast in that it's pretty much year-round. There's always something in season to either hunt or fish along the Oregon coast. You can also fish in the ocean, deep sea fishing, or we have a lot of rivers that run into the ocean. You can fish those rivers too, mostly fishing for things like Chinook and salmon. And then crabbing. The crabbing here is huge. You've got crabbing all up and down the Oregon coast. It's year-round. It mostly ranges from December to August, and I think that the crabbing is typically the best in the months, in the winter months, starting in December. But for the most part, it's year-round. So anytime you want to go crabbing, you can do that. And then the hunting, big game hunting, things like deer and elk. I don't really know actually how great the hunting is, other than there's a ton of deer and elk here. There's a lot of big elk here, so if you're into the big trophy game hunting, they're definitely here. The hunting might be a little bit more difficult. The terrain along the Oregon coast is very rugged and the forests are very thick, so if you're a hunter, that's usually not the combination that you want. So the hunting might be a little bit difficult, but definitely you can always hunt and fish year-round. And the hunting and fishing for the most part is typically very good. A big fishing spot for one of the rivers would be, so we have the Columbia River, which borders Washington and Oregon. The mouth of the Columbia, right where it hits the coast in Astoria, there's a spot called Buoy 10, and that's some of the biggest fishing around that area. All right, so our next pro now is the economy. Well, now, so some of the unemployment numbers and the income numbers aren't the best along the coast and all of the places, but Oregon is ranked 6th by USA Today as far as fastest growing states. What does that mean? Well, people are moving here. More people are moving here than leaving here. That does benefit us for the most part, right? Because it drives up home values. Your home is worth more if you own a home when other people want to buy it. It helps the economy. These people are bringing money here. They're usually able people, so they're people that are working. So all in all, that makes for a more robust economy. I know that some people might not be welcoming, or at least you hear it. I don't really see it, but you hear people maybe not being welcoming of people coming from out of state, such as California. But all in all, that gives us a more robust economy. It's definitely better than being in a state where people are leaving rather than coming to. You live in a state where nobody wants to move to, then it's tough to sell your home. In the state of Oregon, if you buy a home, you can feel pretty comfortable and confident that your home is going to increase in value, and it's going to be a good investment for a long time because people continue to move here, and there's always going to be somebody that's going to want to buy your home when you go to sell it. Again, as opposed to some of those, there's not many of them, but there's a few states right now where people are mostly moving, so usually it's tougher to sell your home there. You don't get as much for it as you might like in that case. So, robust economy, growing economy, one of the fastest growing states in the country, that always helps. All right, now next is a great one that I personally like, beer and wine. Now, again, there might be some bias here, but really, if you look at it, Oregon might be the best place in the world if you're a big craft beer or a wine enthusiast. So if you like beer and wine, I can't think of a better place in the world than the state of Oregon. Now, most of the craft beer is kind of around Portland, and most of the wine is in the Willamette Valley, so not necessarily along the Oregon coast, but there are breweries and wineries all up and down the Oregon coast. You kind of get that effect of when there's enough people in this area that are doing that thing, making wine and beer, then you're going to get some that eventually end up starting up something along the Oregon coast. And that's actually really kind of blown up. I don't know, I would say that maybe the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years, I don't remember breweries like being a huge thing along the Oregon coast 5, 10 years ago beyond, but definitely the last 5 years you see it a lot. And so even if you're somebody that doesn't really visit the breweries, you still kind of benefit from it if you're somebody that eats out, because all the local restaurants, they're still carrying all the local craft breweries and the craft wineries. So if you're going out to eat, you're still getting that like really great beer and wine that you're really not going to find anywhere else in the country. Okay, now the final thing here, a lot of the pros and cons were kind of dictated by numbers and metrics and crime and unemployment, stuff like that. There aren't really any metrics for this one. This is just my personal opinion, both living here and traveling around the country and seeing some other places. One of the biggest pros about living on the Oregon coast is the people. The people here are great. They are warm, welcoming, hospitable. In general, I'd probably describe them as laid back. They're not overly friendly. Have you ever been to a place where you're walking down the street, and then sometimes in some places you walk down the street and somebody will want to make eye contact with you when you walk by, that they're trying to make eye contact with you. Some places you walk down the street, they kind of look the other way. Some people will look down. You don't really get the people looking down, looking away. You don't really kind of get those people. Like sometimes you walk in Portland and people, they don't want to look at you. They don't want to walk next to you. They're not very friendly. You get some friendly people too, but you're going to get more of a mixed bag in a place like Portland. Overall, I think the people are pretty friendly along most of these coastal towns. And I say that again too, I've mentioned Californians a few times. There's kind of like this stigma that Oregonians don't want Californians coming here and we're not very hospitable to those people. I don't really feel that way. I haven't really witnessed that type of behavior. If I look around my neighborhood, all of the recent people that have moved into my neighborhood in the past year, as far as I can think of, they all have California plates. They're all great. They're nice people. Keep in mind if somebody's coming to Oregon, especially from California, it's probably by choice. It's not because they had to come here. So they're probably like-minded people. And again, from what I've seen, Oregonians are typically pretty welcoming. They are very nice people. So the people are great. You're probably not going to find the people to ever be a con really anywhere along the Oregon coast. So it helps to have good people when you're moving somewhere, people that are kind and warm and opening and friendly and things like that. And you'll definitely find that along the Oregon coast. Okay, and I mentioned we're gonna have kind of a final small third category. I wanted to have a few things for this one. I only really have one thing, so if you can think of any others, feel free to comment below, and maybe we'll include those for our next video. But that last thing, it is, I think, a pro for most people, but might be a con for others, and that's marijuana. In the state of Oregon, marijuana is legal, and the way that it works, just because it's legal doesn't mean that you can go sell it anywhere. You gotta get licensed. And city by city, county by county, some people allow it, some don't. So you're gonna find the cannabis or the marijuana shops in some cities, but not others. So if that's a pro for you, you're probably gonna be able to find it. I did a quick map search on Google, and most towns, especially the bigger towns, have these shops. Some towns don't have these shops though. So if you don't like it, if you don't want to be around it for whatever reason, again, some towns don't even allow those shops to exist in their town. I'm sure it's due to how the people voted, and they chose that for one reason or another. So if you don't want to be around it, you'll definitely be able to be somewhere where it's not. But if you do, if that is a pro for you, it should be pretty easy for you to find. So that one, I don't know how many states it's legal in right now, maybe a dozen or 15 or something like that. But if you're coming from outside of the state, might be a decent chance that it's not legal there. And so if that's a pro for you, that might be great. If it's a con for you, I wouldn't sweat it. You'll probably be able to find somewhere where you probably don't even ever see it. Okay, now, and I just want to give you some final thoughts. Now, with this list, it kind of felt a little bit like high crime, higher taxes, high unemployment, low income. You know, I actually kind of felt like I went a little bit heavier on the cons, which is kind of funny because a lot of people are moving to Oregon, they're moving to the Oregon coast, so it's kind of like, well, why is that? Is it really a nice place? Yes, it is a very nice place to live. Why are some of the cons maybe kind of higher? Some things like, why are houses more expensive there? Or maybe why is the median income less there? Well, a lot of people actually move to the Oregon coast to retire. So you might get some people that are driving down the median income because they're not working, or they might be affecting unemployment numbers a little bit because maybe they're working part-time. You know, somebody that retires, they just want to work 15 hours in a local, fly fishing shop or something like that. I think there's a lot of retirees that might be skewing the numbers a little bit. So don't let some of those numbers, kind of give you that impression that maybe it's not that great. If you think about it, why are those people retiring there? Well, people don't typically move and retire to places that they consciously choose that aren't desirable. The Oregon coast is a beautiful place. It's a great place to live. It's got definitely more pros than cons, and that is why people move to retire there. But I think those retirees kind of skew some of those numbers. So don't let the cons outweigh you. The pros are definitely better anywhere along the Oregon coast, or Oregon for that matter. I'm licensed in the state of Oregon. If you want to buy or sell a home, get in touch, give me a text, shoot me an email, give me a call, or like I said, you can click the link below in the description to schedule a Zoom. No matter how you get in touch, we've got your back when it comes to moving along the Oregon coast. All right, everyone, take care.